We were kind of fascinated by film because we only had a VCR player. We could only watch movies.
Oh, you couldn't watch RT or
couldn't watch RT,
okay.
Couldn't watch any of the cartoons or whatever that our friends were watching in school. So a lot of it was to create our own entertainment.
On this episode of Garry Talks Film, I'm joined by brothers Jake and Luke Morgan, two dynamic creatives making waves in Ireland. Whether it's producing feature films, theatre productions, or launching fresh creative ventures, the Morgans are all about vision and heart. We chat about growing up in a creative household, building something together as brothers, and what's next in their journey.
There's a script problem here, and it doesn't matter how good the lighting is or the acting is. It all comes down to the script. So being able to get the support from the likes of Screen Ireland and Creative Europe now in the next project, we're now learning about the value of just having time.
Garry Talks Film, kindly supported by Grace on Demand SkillNet and the Rap Commission.
This podcast is part of the GK Media Studios Creators Network, helping people tell their stories. Become a storyteller today and learn about our podcaster network at gkmediastudios.com.
Hello and welcome to Garry Talks Film. I'm your host, Garry Kelly. The show brought to you by Grace on Demand, SkillNet and the Rap Commission. And delighted to be joined by the one and only, the amazing, highly talented, highly creative Morgan brothers. Jake and Luke, thank you so much for joining me in
Thanks
studio.
a million, Gary.
How are you, Gary? What's the crack?
We only met in person, it was about 18 months ago. It was at the Berlin Film Festival. And it was really strange for me because I heard so much about the two of you.
Was it at that swanky party?
It was at that
Yeah, wow. Yeah. Who let us in?
Immediately alienating ourselves from the viewers here. It's like, we met you at that really high profile party in Berlin.
Yeah, we snuck in the
It
back
was the
door.
hotel where Michael Jackson hung his child out the window.
Oh, was it?
Well, not hung the child, held.
Allegedly.
Allegedly
Yeah.
held the child out the window.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow, okay, so there was history to it as
There
well.
was history
right?
to it. Yeah.
We should have recreated that while we were there.
Yeah, try and hold me out a window now, see how long you hold up. But I heard so much about you, and I've had people who I know who want to be actors, and they're like, oh, how do I get in with them? Like, how do I get to work on one of their productions? And I think what works so well and why people really want to work with you is because the broad spectrum of work that you do, number one. So you do theatre, you do film, but also where it all comes from. Your love for languages, your love for culture, your love for meaningful work.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
So maybe take us back, like when did this bond between two brothers kick off where you're like, actually, we want to collaborate together?
Yeah, I guess we've always been collaborating since we were kids. Like we were in a band. We started
What music did you play?
It started off with heavy metal, actually.
Same
We all
as,
had
yeah.
long hair and
Yeah.
a lot of moshing and stuff.
So were you the grungers or were you then like Metallica?
The moshers.
The
moshers, yeah.
Yeah, we did kind of dabble a little bit in grunge. We were sort of the we were like, yeah, we'll see whatever goes down well in the youth cafes,
Okay,
where
yeah.
we were playing at the time.
Yeah.
But we were collaborating from a young age, and the film thing came about where we were on sleepovers. Our parents had a old VCR camera, and we used to tape over the Disney VCRs and stuff, and really just made up stories with our friends to make each other laugh, and watch them in the evening, have a little movie night. So
Our friend Joseph Duffy is one of the he's kind of commonly referred to by us and by himself as the third Morgan brother,
Okay.
and we'd always be making films with him, as kids. And he's a fantastic actor. He actually works in film now. He's still in the game. But yeah, just the three of us sort of to try and combat boredom or to entertain one another. We didn't do it to impress a girl in our class or because our parents were doing it. It was really just to sort of keep the creative juices flowing. And so we made these little videos together as kids.
And we were kind of fascinated by film because we didn't have TV channels growing up. We only had a VCR player, and that's all we could only watch movies.
Oh, you couldn't watch RT or
couldn't watch RT,
Okay.
couldn't watch any of the cartoons or whatever that our friends were watching in school. So a lot of it was to create our own entertainment, and that was the fun of it.
Yeah, and to be fair to our parents, we grew up in an environment that nurtured creativity. So like Jake said there, we didn't have cable television or satellite television, so we had to read we had to draw, we had to, you know, play with Beanie Babies. Like there were lots of different things that we needed to do in order to sort of access, or I don't want to pose boredom as something that needs to be defeated, but that was how we filled our time growing up. And so when it came to that sort of idea of, you know, what to do with the rest of our lives, when you get to a junction where you need to make these important decisions, you kind of think back and you think, well, what were the things we were doing without, you know, being forced to do them, or for no reason. And it was always kind of creating these creative projects, you know. So
and then like when we left school, Luke went to film school and I did music, so we kind of had a natural
where are you living at this stage?
I was in Dublin and Luke was in ATU, or what it was, GMIT back then, and so we still had that collaboration because he'd be making short films as part of his project, and then I'd be able to write the music for them, and then so the collaboration kind of continued even throughout different stages of our lives, you know. But
we've kept our, you know, music. I suppose it's one half of us is a musician and a composer. Music is very much at the forefront of all of our projects and always has been. And you know, we are songwriters as well, so we love kind of using or leaning towards ideas that sort of can employ the vast sort of area of you know, the creative process that we gravitate towards naturally.
It's just not heavy metal music anymore.
Yeah, no.
It's actually classical and not film scores.
Well, like all those boys like Metallica and System of a Down, like they've all got very extensive experience with like symphony.
Yeah, some of them do.
Writing.
Metallica went through their country music stage as well.
Yeah, exactly. We don't talk about that. But it's good to hear that people, you know, ask about how they can work with us, because we just do what we love, and it's good to hear that that's attractive to people to get involved with, you know.
And are you twins, or is there an age gap?
No, there's about 18 months I think between us, isn't there? Yeah.
They call that Irish twins. Does that count as Irish twins?
I don't know.
Yeah. I'm older and have no hair on my head, so it's easier to tell. And Jake doesn't have any of his hair on his face, so that's how you tell us apart.
Oh, very good, very good. So, do you remember when you were young and you're about to record over a VCR tape with a bit of sellotape over it, and you stopped because you're like, no, this is like, what was the big movie that blew your minds as kids?
I suppose it depends on what stage we were at. We used to love Fievel, An American Tale. Do you remember that animation?
Yes. I cried.
Yeah. I know.
Actually, speaking of crying, I can remember vividly the first time like something made me cry, and I didn't understand what was happening. And it was at the end of the BFG, you know, the animation, and I was very young. We were watching it on the TV. I remember it vividly.
Really?
And I remember at the end, these emotions were happening to me, and I started like involuntarily crying because the film moved me. I can't remember what was going on in the animation, but I just remembered that whatever it was, I was to feel embarrassed about what was happening, and I didn't want him to know that I was crying. So like I was hiding behind one of the couch cushions, and then I think he copped, and I was young, so you were very young.
Remember this at all?
You were maybe like 4 or 5 years old, but you were still like, you would cop that I was trying to hide from you, and he was like goading me. But I was like, I was having an out of body spiritual experience where I was like, I was being moved by a piece of, you know, cinema for the first time.
Yeah.
And I just instinctively, without understanding what was happening, I knew I need to hide this moment from my brother because I'm not supposed to be crying right now.
Yeah,
you know?
we're Irish, we can't show emotions.
Yeah, exactly. And so we've always
learned that from a very young age. You know?
But I think down through the years, you always remember the films that have inspired that moment of like involuntary release in you, you know. And there's been a few down through the years, like Cinema Paradiso was a big one. There's an Italian film, Rosso Come Il Cielo, with Red Like the Sky. It's another favorite of ours.
That's probably my favorite film. Yeah.
And then there's the other films that changed the way we saw the medium of cinema, you know, and the possibilities it presented. Like I remember the first time I saw Snatch by Guy Ritchie, and it just completely blew my mind. But
also humor, like there's films that shaped our humor. Like we were just talking this morning about Anger Management. We watched that when we were kind of the perfect age probably to watch it, and
a bit younger than the
and we just like we can nearly quote the whole film. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. So,
and I think we do kind of tend towards like a style of humor that is sort of like a bit goofy. And there was a lot of films around the early noughties or late 90s that sort of they don't make those types of films anymore.
They're light.
The one-off, the kind of Adam Sandlers or the Jim Carrey films that you know, they had at their core quite an interesting heart and a sentiment, but they were also quite goofy and funny. But they didn't take themselves too seriously. There was no big sequel. There was no big franchise, and I think that's kind of like the type of film that we try and gravitate towards making. Is this like, you know, it's a comedy with heart, and it doesn't take itself too seriously. Well, we hope it won't. That's the kind of film that we really like watching as viewers, and we'd love to be known for making, you know.
And then there's the classics like, you know, the Star Wars and the Lord of the Rings and stuff that we were into as well. You know. And
then to impress the film buffs, There Will Be Blood. There Will Be Blood is like one of the best things that has ever been made. And
that's,
you know,
that was the movie I went to with my now wife on our date night.
No way.
Oh God.
Oh my God.
What a movie to go and see.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's still with you
though. There's no
though.
moment here where I can throw the arm around. It's just not working out for me here.
It's so intense. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good. Yeah.
So where did the love for theatre come then?
Well, actually, it's kind of it's the
there isn't one.
Okay,
we hate it. I'm only joking.
Well, usually we say, you know, but it's like Luke likes it because it's pure working with actors. There's no gear involved and stuff. And from my perspective, it's also the same with musicians. It's like you get to bring the mediums together, and it's live, and it's, you know, the peaks are higher and the troughs are lower kind of thing. So
there's an immediacy about theatre. It's you know, they say it's live, you know, it's alive, but it's dead as quick now. Which is, you know, but we always get to the end of a theatre project, and we've always done theatre. We always get to the end of a theatre project and think, God, never again are we doing theatre. And then the time goes by and you forget the trauma and you just end up doing theatre again. You know,
because I remember I went to GMIT, which is now ATU.
Yeah.
And I studied film and TV, but I was in the drama soc up at the main building, and I directed one of the plays one year, and it was Good Friday. And I found it so difficult because you might have 20 actors on stage and you need action happening everywhere. And I couldn't compute that because I grew up with cinema where you can just frame what you want.
There's a lot less control as a director in theatre, you know.
They could go up on stage and just do their own thing.
The actor is the last person standing on the theatre. You know, like I love actors, Jake mentioned, and I think theatre excites me because
I thought you were going to say Jake doesn't. There.
Yeah.
Okay, don't come for me, actors.
That's what happens for Golden when he was crying.
We won't get into that. But you know, theatre, you can go into if you have a scene in a film has to be filmed underwater, then you need an ambulance, you need stunt doubles, you need equipment that can go underwater. It takes an entire 2 days to get maybe 2 or 3 minutes of footage. It's a big ordeal. All you have to do in a theatre rehearsal room is walk into a room, and you don't need anything. You don't need costumes. You don't need props. You don't need set. And you can say, okay, we're underwater, action. And the audience will make that imaginative leap if you challenge them to. So the rules are different, and the different energies to theatre and to a piece of film. I love each form for different reasons, and I probably would feel more comfortable, you know, in film, because obviously there's a greater degree of control that you have as an artist in film that you don't have in theatre, and that's why many people love theatre. Yeah, we tend to identify predominantly as a film production.
Because you just finished a theatre production.
Yeah.
That you had in Ireland and London.
Yes. It was a big project.
It's a musical theatre. So that's another thing, bringing our strengths together. Is like, we've got the music. So we were working with Kurt Rosenberg, who was the composer, and he got in touch with me to arrange his pieces, his music. And that's how it started. And so we did a bit of development on it for a year, and then we took it to the Town Hall Theatre in Galway, where it was kind of more like a development showing, you know, and with the aim to basically take it on the road in the UK and get it to off West End, which is where we were this summer. So,
yeah, but it was fantastic to get the opportunity to work with Kurt, who is a fantastic artist himself in his own right, and, you know, a very strategic and capable producer as well of work. And it's rare that you get somebody that has both kind of, you know, toes in both worlds. But it was fantastic to get the opportunity to, you know, work with people from Galway. Actors people on the stage, behind the stage, and
But you people from the UK over as well.
we did.
with
We
you
had
doing rehearsals and
we
stuff,
had
which is
a lad
brilliant.
over from who had West End experience.
Yeah.
So it was fantastic to basically give ourselves and give other people the opportunity to work on that scale and to be paid properly to do it. You know,
And this is all happening in the west of Ireland.
Yeah.
yeah.
know?
Oh, the rehearsals were all in the west of Ireland.
Yeah.
The unit base was in the west of Ireland, in Galway here, and all, you know, I'd say 90% of the cast and crew were
Yeah.
you know, were Galway or west of Ireland based. Yeah.
It's brilliant.
Yeah.
So it was a real dream come true for us all, really, and it went really well. We had a great time. We were on the road for a long time.
And it was quite nice to be with the same material for a long time and be able to consider things, you know, come back to things and be like, maybe we should change. Like for me, maybe we should change this note, you know, in the horn or whatever, and see how that works.
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
And so that was a really cool experience, because with film, it's like you write the score, you record it, it's done. With the theater, it's always adapting. Like you're always changing. It's growing. It's evolving. You know.
So you did that production lately, which was called, check my notes, For the Lack of Laura.
That's
For the Lack of Laura, yeah.
And you did a short film a number of years ago, The Boat,
Yes, yeah.
which was a huge success. And we'll
Thank you.
talk about that shortly. And Froggie as well.
Yeah,
which, I was watching there on the TG Carr player
Oh, yeah.
over Christmas, and
Yeah.
I
Oh,
absolutely loved it.
Oh, great.
Kermaggot.
And I want to talk about Froggie as well. So let's first go to The Boat, because I think this goes back to what I was talking about earlier on, this thing of working with different cultures, different languages, focusing on stories of meaning and so on. So for those who haven't seen the short film The Boat, can you give us the log line, the pitch?
Yeah.
So The Boat is based on a true story about a young girl who gets leprosy in the modern age. And, you know, it's a story about herself and her father, and, you know, the choice that her father has to make when he learns that, you know, she has contracted this disease, you know, that is quite taboo still in parts of, you know, India and Africa and Nepal, where leprosy, unfortunately, is still prevalent. So it was a heart-rendering, kind of dramatic, tragic story, which is against the grain of what we'd usually be, you know, attracted to in a project. But it was a fantastic opportunity. We got to go to Nepal. Again, you know, the crew was small. There was maybe 6 of us from Galway, and then about between 8 and 10 Nepali crew members at any given time. And it was just an incredible experience. It's probably the best experience we've had professionally, you know, and we've just sort of structured our entire business plan around trying to just do that again, you know, chase that high again.
Yeah. Where did you get the story from?
We were doing a lot of, so before we became, like, we completely committed to creative producing, we ran a corporate videography sort of company where we'd, you know, get the cash flow in, really. And one of our clients was the Mission to End Leprosy, who are headquartered in Dublin. So we did a couple of videos for them just on awareness of the cause. And he told us one of these stories kind of through the lens of the camera nearly. And so Luke was moved by it and decided that, you know, to let out his creative energy through the script to write.
Get arrested for less now.
And so
The way you
yeah, let out his creative.
yeah. I wrote a script just to clarify.
And we sent it to them, and they.
I'm looking for Luke here. You got the badge here.
Yeah.
You keep having to adjust the microphone down, and there's a tree falling on top.
No,
of you.
it's all good.
Do you want me to shimmy?
No, I'm fine. Yeah, so we sent it to the CEO, Ken Gibson, and he basically got back straight away and said, let's try and make this happen. And to their credit, you know, it was a huge risk for the Mission to End Leprosy to put their weight and funding behind the creation of a dramatic short film. Usually charity or agencies like charities, it's a far safer bet to do something like a documentary or, you know, a promotional video.
Yeah.
But it's testament to the vision, to Ken's vision, that he basically gave us the creative freedom to, you know, create a piece of narrative cinema that, you know, we argued would strike people in the heart rather than in the head. And we were thrilled with the journey it had, you know, on the International Film Festival circuit, and it won a couple of Academy Award qualifying awards. I left the gap there strategically. Won a couple of Academy Award qualifying.
So we decided which way to go.
Yeah. It's like sounds. Yeah. But anyway, we it was fantastic. And then Brendan Gleeson came on board as a executive producer of the film.
Wow.
Just on the strength of having seen it and wanting to kind of lend.
So have you
his
met
name
Brendan
to
in
it.
person?
No, I didn't meet him.
We've met him down through the years at various events, but it wasn't through that channel that he got involved. No.
But since him coming on board,
we actually haven't met him since.
It's mad, isn't it?
Yeah, it's crazy.
I met him years ago at the Galway Film Fleadh.
Yeah,
he was upstairs in the Town Hall Theatre.
But he's very down to earth. Like
he's so down to earth, and like he'd done Braveheart and Michael Collins. He was well known at this stage. And Garry Kelly decided to tell him, Brendan, I actually think one of your best pieces of work is I Went Down. It's a great movie.
It is, yeah.
Thanks very much. And
we love 6 Shooter.
He walked out of there like a minute later. He's like, I'm not stuck with this lad for the evening. You know,
he's quite big as well. He's so tall. He's very.
I think his brother actually lives in Galway.
He's a big presence, when he's in the room. But he's one of our best actors.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So it was a thrill to have him on board.
So you went from a short,
yes,
to a feature film.
Yes.
No slowing down at all.
No, not at all.
And it was a totally independent feature film as well.
Oscailge.
Yeah. So we're passionate about the Irish language. We made an effort recently to learn, relearn Irish, because we only had kind of Leaving Cert Irish, which anybody who's done the Leaving Cert in Ireland knows is no Irish. But no, we kind of.
So you're not Gaeilgeoirs?
No.
Or you weren't anyways?
No.
Oh, wow. And you made a movie in Irish?
Níl Gaeilge gar Tishmahor, so our parents don't have Irish.
Okay.
But Rinnemer kind of Eric kind of quite Gaeilge fiao, so we made an effort to improve our Irish retrospectively, and we got some support from TG Carr's Block platform. Carolyn Ducoin was running the joint back then, and she gave us sort of some money towards creating this vlog series around a language journey.
Yeah, exactly. A journey through learning the language.
Yeah. So we still use the Irish language, and we were really passionate about developing work in Irish. So when it came to, there was a window of opportunity where we could make a feature, we decided to do so in Irish, even though there was no funding on board for it. So there was usually, people kind of made the assumption that, it's Irish, you must have got funding for there was loads of funding you got because it was in Irish. It's like we didn't have any funding.
Commission, the man gave us some money towards bringing
Grace on Demand give us money towards.
Grace on Demand.
Yeah.
Sorry, give us money
for a trainee. Grace on Demand give us money towards a trainee. Yeah, so we were able to pay a trainee. But we had a great journey with Froggie as well. It premiered at the Galway Film Fleadh, which was incredible because we love the Galway Film Fleadh. We love it as audience members, and we go every year and we try and get to as many things as we can. And so to have a screening in the town hall on the Wednesday night, and all our friends and family and the wider community were there, and it was sold out. It was just a dream come true. It was fantastic.
And people might be able to catch Froggie on TG Carr.
That's right. Yeah.
So you said it was an independent production. Kind of break it down for me. Can you talk about budget? Can you talk about how many days filming? What was the post like?
We had enough budget to just pay people for their time, really. And that was a small team, so it wasn't by any means a lot of money.
How did you raise the funding?
We raised the money through savings, and then, we had some support from Grace on Demand, as Jake has mentioned, and also, corporate videography clients and savings that we put aside. So it was a real kind of pot shot.
It was,
And it just all lined up. We had the availability of a couple of key collaborators that we'd wanted to work with. Sean T. O'Malley, Carrie Crowley, and it all came together, and we just did it very quickly. Now it was quite stressful. It was a bigger undertaking.
It was a day-night shoot nearly.
It was a
4-week shoot, and it was a far greater undertaking than we had anticipated. We kind of, when we were developing the script, thought this is kind of doable for a low budget, ultra low budget, micro budget. But it wasn't really, and it's not great to be discovering that halfway through the shoot. But you got to keep going.
Pretty much the amount of locations in the film, and we had to keep roping in favours because it was all shot around Galway in the west of Ireland. So that was kind of part of how we got it made, was that we knew the people who we could get the location for, like a pub or, the town hall or the Thaviark Theatre. also let us shoot there as well, which was great. So it was, was roping
the
in favours.
the community
keeping
in
the team
Galway
small.
is so supportive when it comes to trying to get stuff made. Like you have Little Cinema, Kenny Gahan, who should be given the Nobel Prize in filmmaking for his, Titan efforts, Trojan efforts to kind of keep the spirit of independent filmmaking alive. So you have that community that you can dip into, and also the business community in Galway are generally very positive and supportive of,
the arts,
people who want to make stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a great collective buy-in that the businesses in Galway have towards making it, or keeping our reputation as like the artistic heart of Ireland.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
Because you're now at the stage where you have a project with development funding from Screen Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And you're also working on a project with Creative Europe.
Yes, it's the same project.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not that you tried all avenues, you couldn't get funding, so you just said, let's make a feature ourselves, and kind of one Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kids final scenario. Like it's actually making sense because it's going into dealing now with.
It was kind of the ignorance of youth and a touch of impatience. Froggie would have benefited, I think, from a bit more development time, a bit more pre-production time. It was a bit rushed. We really went into it all guns blazing, and hindsight's a beautiful thing, and we've made this kind of mistake down through our professional careers where we've looked back at films and we've seen, there's a script problem here, and it doesn't matter how good the lighting is or the acting is, or it all comes down to the script. So, being able to get the support from the likes of Screen Ireland and Creative Europe now in the next project, where we've literally had like the guts of 2 years to just focus on the script and get that completely 100% right, has been an incredible, point of development for us as creative producers and artists, because we're now learning about the value of just having time to spend on these things.
But you only appreciate that now, having just gone and done it yourselves first.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now it was incredible. I wouldn't change anything in that we got Froggie made. We got it over the line just by sheer kind of force of will, and the collaborators that we had on board, everybody was behind the vision of it.
And you do grow like in your skills, and you learn more stuff nearly by going through that route, rather than the university and stuff. That's all great, but sometimes you just have to get stuck in and adapt and respond and plan and stuff like that. So I think as a company we actually did come a long way after doing Froggie.
Yeah, brilliant. So there's obviously huge learning by self-financing it yourself.
Yeah,
but I'm assuming that you don't get the kickback financially out of it. It is very much a one-way investment from a financial perspective.
It's hard to qualify, because you never know, maybe we wouldn't have got the funding from Screen Ireland had we not have
beaten the drum.
Froggie.
Yeah.
So it's hard to know, but it's kind of hard to get sales for an Irish language comedy film.
Yeah, because I'm at that scenario at the moment as well of, do we invest in approach that we have, just get it made, get the experience?
Yeah.
But then someone was saying to me in the industry, no, you don't spend your own money. You always spend someone else's money. Never spend your own money.
Well, I don't think we'd recommend it, to be honest. Because we found, and this was a bit of a surprise, was that, when it came to actually trying to sell it or get a distributor or sales agent on board, nobody really wanted to touch the project because the Screen Ireland weren't involved in the project. So I think distributors and sales agents can access a tier of funding from Screen Ireland, but the stipulation is that they need to be involved in the film in some way.
Okay.
So it was too much of a financial risk for anybody to take on Froggie, even though they had been in the room and they had seen the reaction that it gotten, and the fact that it was sold out and people were laughing all the way through it and seemed to really enjoy the film. It was still, they were like, it's too much of a risk for us, so we're not touching this. And that was a big learning curve for us. In that, you almost do need the seal of approval of a state agency for other people to trust what you're doing.
Yeah.
It gives
it's
you
less risky, I suppose, for them if they're investors or if they're sales agents or if they're distributors. It's nearly like this has got a stamp of approval by Screen Ireland.
It gives you a layer of a legitimacy that maybe you don't have without it. They're kind of distrustful of people who just is like, why, how did these lads do this? This doesn't add up. This situation isn't to be trusted.
Yeah.
When in actual fact, it was completely above board, and we did all the paperwork was in place. It was just sort of like immediately, I think they just see the logo of these big agencies, and they immediately kind of were like, this is everything's.
But we thought it actually might be a strength that we had no financiers, no people like dictating,
independent,
exactly, and that it would, might be an attractive thing for an investor to get involved in or a sales agent, because there was no one in the waterfall ahead of them for the royalties.
Yeah, exactly.
No, it didn't work out that way at all. So,
because I remember years ago, I was at the Cannes Film Festival, and we'd had development funding from what was then the Irish Film Board for a feature film. So we were reaching out to meet people, and no one wanted to meet us. But when we said we had development funding from the Irish Film Board, suddenly it was mad. We went from no one wanting to meet us to being on yachts with lobsters and tanks, caviar being served and champagne. Oh my God. That switch.
Well, a lot of the business arts is kind of smoke and mirrors. It's all buffing. And that's why Americans, are very good at it, because they're very sort of, very in a great way. And we've learned so much by working with people from the United States. They're able to sort of sell themselves as a package worth investing in. And they understand that innately. And, whereas we would regard that as a little bit like, you'd have notions telling people,
No, it's so true,
but Irish, people in Irish culture, I think we tend to we self-flagellate in order to sort of reduce ourselves in other people's eyes, because we don't want to be seen to be buoying ourselves up. But you kind of, somewhere in the middle between the two cultures is the sweet spot. Because it does make a difference when you're able to say, this project is funded by Creative Europe. And that might be it mightn't mean anything in actual fact, but they hear that, and it does change their attitude towards you. We've noticed that ourselves, for sure.
Point, And obviously there'll be people listening or watching this episode who have gone through the development process before. They understand the game. It's a piece of cake. But for someone who has an idea, who has a project, whose next action is to go through that application of submitting for development funding, what kind of advice would you give them?
It's a good question.
So like I was doing a Screen Ireland application earlier this year,
right?
And this is the first one I would have done in maybe a decade.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, this application is so different to what it was.
A lot of work in it.
10 years ago. Back then, it was very much building a relationship, a rapport with someone in there, and nearly them becoming your voice. Whereas this now is like it was going into deep questions holistically about the project and its themes and its importance, not just, is this a good story? So I was blindsided by how much thinking had to be put in to this application, because this wasn't just, is this a good story and is this financially viable? There was a lot more depth.
In fairness to Screen Ireland, like, they're very story focused, and so it's all about the story. It's all about the story.
So I waste my time with all those.
No, they have to ask those questions, and it's worth. You obviously have to put the time in to answer
like
them.
But
it's mostly,
if it comes down to the stories, two stories are really good.
Okay,
it's like, which one had the better answers for this, for example, the sustainability or the theme or whatever. That's who gets it. Do you know what I mean? It's nearly a decider at that point.
But the creative freedom that they've afforded us with our development funding, for Guso, for example, which is the name of our project. They were quite hands-off, which we were surprised at, but really appreciated, because they trusted us to basically creatively guide the project. And then they just sort of came in at key intervals to give us their feedback. But it's all been story-orientated, especially with the development team anyway, because I think they understand that that's the most important part of, the process, the development process. Yeah.
So are you working with a script editor? Or,
Yeah, we had been, for Julie O'Leary.
Yeah, we've kind of closed off our stage 1 development now, and we're in the process of readying an application. They make you, apply for each new stage. So
there's 4 stages, isn't it, in development?
There's actually 2. So so there's development, and then there's additional development, and then production. But you're not guaranteed anything, at any stage. You have to continuously kind of like apply as on the ground level, which is a good thing, because you're constantly having to go back to the touchstones of why does it have value? Why should it be funded? And, you know, you think about it from multiple different angles. Like there's the marketing and distribution angle. There's also the story. There's the casting potential. And, you know, you have to be able to do that as filmmakers, is see something from multiple different angles.
And the thing with a script editor as well, I don't know, did you have this experience? But sometimes they can completely change the story and bring it down a different path.
Yeah.
They ask questions and that can challenge the way you view the story, and then that might it's
a very particular skill, actually, script editing, because I think they, you know, you said questions. I think that's the mark of a good script editor, in my experience, is like somebody who asks questions rather than imposes their own opinions about how the story should be. A script editor needs to be facilitating the vision of the writer and the story that the writer wants to tell, rather than implanting or projecting their own desires as writers on the story. Do you know what I mean? And you can very easily slip into that territory. We work with Julia O'Leary, who's great, but I've worked previously with Anne Learmont, who T.G. Carr will employ a lot, you know, for the likes of Ross Naroon. And I think she's from Donegal. She's a fantastic script editor as well.
Did you work on Ross Naroon before?
I did briefly. Yeah, I was in the story room for one of it for Shra 21. So,
and what was the big learning there?
Just collaborative working as part of a team, and I love. It's probably one of my favorite parts of the writing process is the collaborative nature of the round table, like lots of people in a room coming up with, you know, you're vibing off each other and coming up like you know, sparks are flying, and I loved that. You know,
you recently, Jake, purchased a house.
I did.
Congrats!
Thank you very much.
That's like a big win for anyone in the industry.
Well, now I have a serious debt now with the bank, but it's nice.
No, it's brilliant. So I wonder, you know, how do you financially survive in this industry?
The answer is to be married to someone who has a stable job. I nearly could answer that before you asked the question.
So I hang outside the Medtex in Galway in the car park.
Emma is single-handedly keeping Morgan Brothers afloat.
Yeah, like the banks, when they hear you're self-employed, it's like, okay, let's study this guy and their companies, you know, records and stuff. So it's that's the main reason. I have a
fair enough. Because it is tough. Like it's very much project to project, and again, you know, you're in development with Augusta at the moment, but you know, you don't know what the next stage is.
Well, look, we're hunter gatherers, and you've got to be if you're self-employed.
And we can kind of adapt in that we can become leaner as a company, and then, you know, expand when we do have big projects and things like that. So, you know,
there was about 35 people on the staff for the Lack of Laura this summer, and now we're 2 again. You know, when we're shooting Augusto, there'll be a huge team, you know, but between projects, that ability to sort of scale up and scale down is one that you need, I think, if you want to have a film production company, because it's not always, you know, it's not all guns and fast cars. Like there are the several days where you're turning up to the office and you're in development, and it feels like it's going to go on forever, and you know, it's you feel like your age is away from cameras rolling and stuff, and you just got to keep the faith and believe that, you know, what you're doing is contributing to that moment where you will get back on set and you'll be able to do it.
So do you deal with a scenario where one of you might be just having a down day and the other's trying to lift them up and say, look, it's going to be good?
Sometimes you kind of, that's what's good about being, well, first of all, a duo, but brothers as well, that you can sort of, you know, you can play devil's advocate, or you can, you know, balance and the scales a little bit. When things are down, you can be like, oh, but look at the bright side.
Yeah, sometimes there's no sugarcoating. You know, sometimes a bad day is a bad day. And I think being in business with somebody who you don't need to pretend that you're having fun all the time with, it's useful, because sometimes you're just having a really, you know, you get bad news like about a project, and you just have to be able to be in that low together. And I think you get into business with your friend because you have this idea that it's going to be fun all the time.
Yeah.
Whereas being in business with your brother or your sibling, not to make it a gender thing, but it's your sibling, you're kind of more used to living through life's ups and downs. There isn't that constant need to entertain one another all the time. And so there are days where it's a little harder, and the news isn't as good, and it's not as glamorous, as what you think you signed up for. And there's an understanding that, look, that's just the way it is,
Yeah.
And what would stop you from getting that financially secure 9 to 5 Monday to Friday job?
Good question. Is anybody hiring? No. We were talking about this earlier today. Actually,
kind of the creative freedom, and
the variety.
Yeah, the variety.
Yeah.
Not every day is the same.
Yeah.
And doing kind of, you're doing what you love, but as Luke likes to say, you do what you love. You work every day of your life, not the other way around.
The way it's like, do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life. It's like, no, you will work every day of your life, including Christmas. Oh, we wouldn't change it for the world.
Yeah.
I mean, it's earlier this year we were in Santa Barbara, and we were outside the screening of our film. Froggie was happening at what time? At 10 o'clock in the morning or something, in the cinema number 1 in the Santa Barbara Film Center, and there was nobody outside, and we looked at each other and we're like, oh, this is going to be one of those days.
It's going to be us then.
we got Culture Ireland funding to go over to this event, and it's like there's nobody here.
Right.
So we just sort of looked at each other, we steeled ourselves, we took a deep breath, we walked in, the place was packed. There was nobody outside because everybody was inside. We had to sit right up the front of the front. That was like, 300 people in California who would come out at 10 o'clock in the morning to watch an Irish language independent film.
From the west of Ireland.
They didn't know us. We didn't know anybody in the audience. We didn't have any friends or family there. It was literally just total strangers. And they just got the film. And those were the moments where you're like, you would never get this in another industry. And it was really genuinely incredible,
Brilliant.
So...
Okay, I'm going to wrap it up with a little bit of advice that I want from you. Not that I'm good at No, lads, I'll tell you this.
A 9 to 5 is what you're going to do now. You're going to leave here.
So I know there's loads of different roles that you've done in terms of writing, producing and so on, but I'll just try and narrow it down to one role per person
of course,
just for this exercise.
Yeah, sure.
So, Jake, we'll say composer, right? 2 questions. First is, what advice would you give to someone who wants to become a composer?
I think listen. A lot of the time when people think of composer, it's about, oh, I want to make the noise. But I think a lot of it is to listen to as much as you can and appreciate all types of music. And then from that, be inspired. That's kind of,
Brilliant. And Luke, we'll say for directing, or if you want to do writing, whichever you're more comfortable with, what advice would you give to someone who, again, wants to fall into that role in the industry?
Well, Tarantino is famously quoted for saying, I didn't go to film school, I went to films. And I would very much be of that school of thought. It's like, watch as much stuff as you can. And I would say, don't just evolve yourself in film, dip your toes in theatre.
You're stealing my answer.
Yeah.
You're just framing it a different way.
I'm on a pedestal. Give me my moment here. It's like once a year where somebody makes me feel like I'm an expert in something. It's like Ingmar Bergman, the Swedish filmmaker. His day job was directing plays, but he made 1 film a year. And just so keep the antennas up, be inspired by art, whether it's visual art, poetry, novels, and bring that into your work. Like it's not just film making that you get your inspiration from. Get your inspiration from science, from maths, from the world around you, and then just watch loads of films.
Brilliant.
Yeah, the other thing was just to keep at it. You know what I mean? I know it's kind of, it goes without saying, but the more you stick around, the sort of more likely
there's nobody else in the pot to give money to.
No, I always say, if you go to the Galway Film Flat and you're outside and you're looking at people on the steps,
that's not easy.
There's like people in their 20s who are like really hungry and believe that they might be just out of college.
And then there's the jaded, beaten down,
and kind of the 30s
heads.
Don't exist there. And then it's the survivors that's left.
Yeah. Well, and they're running some international film fund just because they were in the game long enough.
Exactly. Yeah. But I suppose that advice, kind of the subtext, is just have a sustainable way of practicing. Don't work yourself to the ground. Make sure that you can keep at it. and survive, you know what I mean, at the same time.
And then final round of question is, for someone working with a composer,
Yes.
what advice would you give them?
I'd say communicate. If you have no like prior music knowledge, or you don't know the technical terms, communicate with emotions. Just talk in emotions to the composer, and that's our job, is to translate those emotions into music. Yeah, I think that's probably, if you do have musical knowledge, great, we can, chat all of that sort of crap.
Yeah.
But
It's best, I think, I find, if you're a director and you want to work with a composer, leave them as little amount of time as possible to compose the score. Just they work better
Especially if you
under
want a
pressure.
frantic anthem,
Yeah, so give them maybe a day or two, especially if it's a feature film, maybe 3 days. But normally, less time the better.
Yeah.
and whatever changes left over from the rest of the budget.
Okay.
Yeah. That's what composing costs.
Do a whip around at the rap party or something, or at the premiere even. Yeah. And what about, because as a writer director, you're working with multiple departments on a daily basis, and I'm sure it can be quite overwhelming. And having your vision clear and articulate is so important. But what advice would you give to the people coming up to you?
Well, look, like in life, you are the aggregate of the people you spend most time with. So as a director, you're the aggregate of your HODs. You're going to be as good as the average of your HODs. They are they are what make you who you are as a director. And being a director, there's all this talk about vision. It's, I think, more about compromise, tolerance and compromise. Like any great relationship, in creatively or romantically or anything, is about tolerance and compromise. I've found myself being taught that being a great director is like being a visionary. And I don't know if obviously there's an element of the job that is that you have to be a visionary, particularly in pre-production. But when you're on set and you're in the middle of a field and it's piss and rain and you've got you're way over time and your actor is late and you got 5 minutes to get the shot, your job is to be a facilitator of other people's creativity, and to do so in a way that strikes the aggregate and uses the talents of those around you in a way that, best suits the project. That's in my opinion.
Brilliant. Excellent. I was going to, because I introduced you as Jake and Luke, so now I'm going to go the other way. Luke and Jake Morgan, thank you so much for joining me on Garry Talks Film, and continued success with all your projects.
Thank you very much, Garry. Cheers. Gurmagat.
Garry Talks Film, kindly supported by Grace on Demand, Skillnet, and the Rap Commission.